Welcome to NTN Nightly. I am Janelle Norvell. This edition's top stories. The Saint Lucia Electoral Department readies its staff for the 2021 general election. The Ministry of Health and Wellness has implemented a new method of classifying COVID-19 mortality in Saint Lucia. And Miss World Saint Lucia 2021 pays a royal visit to strategic partners. The Saint Lucia Electoral Department is readying its staff as the country gears up for the 2021 general election. Staff of the department has commenced training sessions with a view of refamiliarizing officers with their role and responsibilities come election day. This time around, the department is working not only to ensure a smooth and fair general election, but also a safe one as Saint Lucia continues to fight against the spread of COVID-19. We hear more in this report. The Saint Lucia Electoral Department is readying its officers for the 2021 general election. The department on Wednesday held a training session for returning officers, election clerks, and assistant election clerks. The training, according to Special Assistant to the Chief Elections Officer Herman St. Helen, was geared towards getting the officers reacquainted with their roles, functions, and the material used, and what is expected of them come election day. This is a compulsory exercise for election staff, which occurs every general election and is facilitated by the Electoral Department. The training is conducted over several sessions and is done in a train-the-trainer format.
There are a couple new things. There is a new set of protocols because of the COVID pandemic, and we must observe all the protocols which are in place as it pertains to social distancing, the wearing of masks, and these kind of issues. Yes, they are quite different. There are new protocols. In addition, we can see a change in the number of people who would be working within the polling station to accommodate those changes. The workshop was very interactive, so it means that the staff are already interested, the election staff, and we anticipate a good turnout from them, and we expect them to do the best as it pertains to what they are supposed to do for the upcoming elections. Usually, Saint Lucia has a reputation for conducting free and fair elections without interferences, and would expect no less from them this time around.
The Electoral Commission is also playing its part to ensure a seamless and fair general election. The three-member entity was on site to ensure that the preparations for the upcoming general election ran smoothly and up to par. The commission is appointed by the Governor-General, one appointed by the Governor-General upon consultation with the opposition leader, another appointed by the Governor-General upon consultation with the Prime Minister, and one appointed by the Governor-General's own deliberate judgment. The commission is responsible for two major processes, which include the registration of voters to elect members to the House and the conduct of elections. Cynthia Combi Mata is the chairperson of the commission.
We attended a Zoom meeting with the Ministry of Health, the CMO, the Ministry of External Affairs, and the Police Commission, and a few persons, stakeholders, with the responsibility for addressing and dealing with the international observers. Saint Lucia the Honorable Prime Minister invited 3 observer missions. So we have a mission from the OAS, CARICOM, and Commonwealth. And they will be arriving a few days or a day or two just before the advance poll, which takes place on the 23rd of July 2021, and the general poll takes place on the 26th of July.
The chairperson explained the role of the observers.
The observers really are here to observe the election and to ensure, the presence of observers in of itself gives some sort of validity to your process. They're here to ensure that the process is fair, transparent, and there's nothing that could invalidate it in any way. So they observe the process, they observe our computer systems, how we transmit the results. They are here from the opening of poll. They see everything that goes on during the poll because they observe, and they go from polling station to polling stations and to observe that the election workers are doing what they're supposed to do to ensure the validity and fairness of the vote.
The training session was held at the Castries Comprehensive Secondary School on Wednesday, 14th July 2021. Meantime, the Ministry of Health and Wellness has implemented a new method of classifying COVID-19 mortality in Saint Lucia so as to ensure accountability and the dissemination of clear and accurate information during national, regional and international reporting exercises. Hamadi Mark reports.
From the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, Saint Lucia, along with other countries, recorded COVID-19 deaths as anyone who tested positive for COVID-19 by PCR test at the time of their passing. A distinction is now being made between individuals who succumbed as a result of COVID-19 and COVID-19 related deaths, which is defined as someone diagnosed with COVID-19 at the time of their passing but died due to other causative illnesses such as cancer or causes like trauma. If there is a period of complete recovery from COVID-19 prior to a person's demise, this will not be classified as a COVID-19 death. Dr. Michelle Fassois, National Epidemiologist in the Ministry of Health and Wellness, explained the approach taken by the ministry in undertaking this exercise.
Deaths that I described wouldn't be termed as COVID-related deaths. They were not the underlying cause of illness. And what we had to do in terms of this classification, let me have Saint Lucia to rest assured that the death certificates were not modified. Nothing was changed. At the Ministry of Health and Wellness, we do not sign death certificates. What we do is review the death certificates. So based on the chronology of events which the attending physician had documented on the death certificates, we use this to determine whether it was a COVID death or a COVID-related death. And so, for example, an individual in the cause of death on a death certificate, an individual who tests positive for COVID-19 may develop a pneumonia, and that pneumonia may lead to acute respiratory distress syndrome. And that would be classified as a COVID-19 death. Similarly, as I explained, an individual who, for example, has a heart attack, that would weaken the heart and cause some sort of heart failure. And so this individual testing positive for COVID-19, and if you notice, COVID-19 is written in part 2, and there are 2 parts to this death certificate. So that individual would not be classified as a COVID-19 death because his underlying illness was the heart attack, and which led to heart failure and the resulting death.
Dr. Fassois assures the public that death certificates were not modified during the exercise. The Ministry of Health and Wellness also conducted a thorough analysis of their database to rule out any inadequacies that may have been recorded.
Anybody who manages a database would understand that databases need to be examined, they need to be cleaned. There may be duplicates, and it is very easy to get duplicates in a database. Whereby persons may present using their driver's license, for example, and present at the hospital using their national ID card. And we know on death certificates, sometimes you know somebody by one name and they present with a totally different name later on. So all of these issues we had to address, go through our database to ensure that the information that was there was reliable.
The Ministry of Health and Wellness informed that as of July 12, 2021, a total of 5,410 cases have been diagnosed in country, and a total of 50 COVID-19 deaths and 36 COVID-19 related deaths have been recorded. From the Government Information Service, Hamadi Mark reporting.
The Prime Minister of Saint Lucia continues to advocate for equitable access to climate finance for small island developing states. The issue was brought to the fore by the recent passage of Hurricane Elsa, which battered the island, leaving in her wake 1 death and millions of dollars in damages. We get details in this report. The passage of Hurricane Elsa has once again brought to the fore how paramount it is that countries have equitable access to climate financing. Climate finance refers to local, national or transnational financing, which may be drawn from public, private and alternative sources of financing. It is critical to addressing climate change because large-scale investments are required to drastically reduce emissions, notably in sectors that emit large quantities of greenhouse gases. Climate finance is equally important for adaptation, for which significant financial resources will be similarly required to allow societies and economies to adapt to the adverse effects and reduce the impacts of climate change. Prime Minister of Saint Lucia, the Honorable Alan Chasney, says it is proving especially difficult for small island developing states, SIDS, to access climate financing.
The difficulty is you run a very fine line, because the indicators that the global international agencies use to determine your solvency, your capability, is debt to GDP, and also per capita GDP. These are two things that are used on a regular basis. Saint Lucia still is not determined to be a high-level income country. We're a middle income country, and we still have access to some concessional financing. But because of your debt to GDP, you're restricted on how much you can borrow. So even though it may be on a very concessional terms, it can affect your credit rating if you have too high of a debt to GDP number. What we've been working with the development agencies with is to reclassify small island developing states. Saint Lucia is one of the 43 small island developing states around the world, using what we called a different indicator, one that is based on vulnerability. So it takes into other things into consideration. So we saw in the Bahamas, even though they have a very high per capita GDP, they still have not recovered from the hurricane in 2019. And that's, because it's a lot of money to make that happen. So we would like the international agencies to either lend us money or, more importantly, to give us grant funds, because climate change is not our fault, to put in plain English. Even if we were to become net neutral, it's not going to change our situation. It requires America, Canada, Europe, China to address these situations.
The Prime Minister opined that funding should be made available to SIDS to enable these countries to build resilience against climate change. Honorable Chasney described the situation as an ongoing battle. He explained that the affected countries are confronting the challenges using a collaborative approach.
We're speaking as one voice. There is the COP meeting coming up in the UK, Prime Minister Boris Johnson, and now having Kerry, the former Secretary of State of the United States, as well as Prime Minister Trudeau, and the Commonwealth Secretariat, working with us to get this message across. The World Economic Forum, as you know, Saint Lucia was one of the 2 countries in the world that was included to help design the new World Economic Order as it pertains to climate change. These papers are going to be presented, and I'm very hopeful that persons will understand our plight. So even before COVID came, it was a difficult situation. COVID only exacerbated the situation, and I would say this to you, the work that we did leading up to COVID on climate change really helped make the case very fast. Because if you see, the World Bank and the IMF and CDB all responded in record time in providing resources to us to deal with COVID. So I'm encouraged, and I think that we are arguing this not from a begging perspective, but certainly reminding the world that if you limit the economic output of these countries, you're minimizing the opportunities for your own countries.
The UK will host the 26th United Nations Climate Change Conference of the Parties, COP26, in Glasgow on the 31st of October to the 12th of November 2021. Saint Lucia's tourism sector continues to show strong signs of rebound with the reopening of a number of industry establishments coupled with the re-employment of hundreds of industry workers. Tourism officials remain optimistic as visitor arrivals to Saint Lucia for the month of June have exceeded expectations by 34%. We'll learn more in this report.
21,357 visitors have been recorded for June, surpassing May's figure of over 7,000. Public Relations Manager at the Saint Lucia Tourism Authority, Jeraine Georges, explains the trends in source markets.
We're seeing the US market back at 92%, growth on the UK market 4% for the month of June 2021 as well as year to date. So for us, we're really optimistic. The Caribbean market as well is opening up very nicely and projecting nicely. We saw the return of the interferry service on the 8th. You know, it was a sight to see when the ferry pulled into the port, because we've not seen a ferry in so long. And with airlift, there's several of them contributing to our arrivals for the summer period. Air Sunshine is one of them with direct routes from St. Croix and St. Kitts. So, all of these are adding to our growth and our continued rebound amid the pandemic.
Tourism Minister Honorable Dominic Fede indicates that hotel occupancy levels on the island are benefiting as a result, with favorable projections going into winter.
The recovery is happening so quickly. There's such pent-up demand that the hotels are seeing record-breaking bookings. A lot of them are doing very well, and there's just a lot of confidence in the marketplace. Projections for the winter are through the roof in terms of the bookings. We had a situation a few weeks ago where one of the American Airlines flights were cancelled, but we had no place to put the guests because all of the hotels that are open were full. And that really is something else when you see that our hotels have such very strong occupancy.
The two officials were speaking during the welcome ceremony for Celebrity Millennium on Tuesday, July 13, 2021. From the Government Information Service, Humedi Mark reporting.
Miss World Saint Lucia 2021 recently paid a royal visit to partners who have come on board with the events company of Saint Lucia to lend support and ensure her success at the Miss World contest in San Juan, Puerto Rico on December 16, 2021. Let's have a look.
The events company of Saint Lucia, ECSL, is leading Saint Lucia's journey to Miss World 2021. The entity hopes that the procurement of the Miss World franchise will improve the quality of local pageants by attracting a higher caliber of participants. The move is also expected to create international marketing opportunities for Saint Lucia due to increased exposure for the country at the Miss World pageant and allow export avenues to be explored. To ensure the success of this undertaking, the ECSL has attained the support of various agencies. Tyler Feofan, Saint Lucia's representative for the Miss World pageant, on Wednesday, 23 June 2021, visited partner agencies. Each entity will aid in her journey to queenship. The agencies collaborating with the events company of Saint Lucia include Export Saint Lucia, who will assist in developing a line of merchandise for the brand Miss World Saint Lucia for sale in the local, regional, and international markets. Saint Lucia Tourism Authority, in collaboration with ECSL, will develop a marketing campaign for Miss World Saint Lucia to be rolled out in regional and international markets. The campaign will highlight Saint Lucia's strengths and beauty as a nation and as a people. The Cultural Development Foundation will create a cultural training and development education program for the participant, as well as a cultural package for delivery by Tyler Feofan at Miss World 2021, and ensure authenticity on the matters relating to the culture of Saint Lucia, including folklore, costume, music, and language. Citizenship by Investment Saint Lucia CIP Saint Lucia will use its platforms and partnerships to help access professional services and resources in support of Saint Lucia's participation in Miss World 2021. The Saint Lucia Community College, too, is playing its part, providing training and development to Tyler Feofan in the areas of elocution and public speaking, as well as Spanish in preparation for the contest in San Juan, Puerto Rico. Tyler Feofan will also be pursuing a bachelor's degree in environmental science and sustainability with the Saint Lucia Community College as part of this engagement. Tyler Feofan will be representing Saint Lucia at the Miss World pageant on December 16, 2021. From the Government Information Service, Humedi Mark reporting.
This is NTN Nightly. Up next, Primus Hutchinson with the NTN Nouvelle Creole.
COVID-19 is a new pandemic disease as declared by the World Health Organization. It is transmitted directly by respiratory droplets when an infected person coughs or sneezes, or indirectly through rubbing the face with contaminated hands. There is still no specific treatment or vaccine against COVID-19, and as such, the farming community should adhere to some special recommendations. Ensure that farm clothing and gear is clean. Wash hands thoroughly before harvesting crops. Use face masks and head ties whilst harvesting, cleaning, and packaging crops. Use all safety precautions when transporting crops to the markets and depots, such as handling crates and crops with only clean hands and covering sneezes and coughs with a tissue or the inner arm to ensure body fluids or droplets don't get on produce, and washing hands or using hand sanitizer after using the tissue. More than ever before, your important role as gatekeepers of St. Lucia's nutritional, health and food security should be taken seriously. When you exercise these precautions, you not only safeguard your health, but also continue to allow all St. Lucians access to freshly grown fruits, vegetables and other local crops. Remember, it is our responsibility to ensure our nation eats fresh, St. Lucia's best.
Welcome back. We join Primus Hutchinson for the NTN Nouvelle à Créole.
Monsieur le Général, Monsieur, Madame, département qui nous responsabilité pour l'information en gouvernement Saint Lucia, ça c'est GIS, ça c'est depuis télévision nationale pays NTN, à poser une nouvelle à Créole, pour c'était au Primus Hutchinson. Les officiers en département électoral qui suivions étonnement mercredi passé, ça c'était le 14 en mois de juillet 2021, pour venir au courant et puis divers équipements, documents et l'autre qui venir pour faire et puis élection qui a eu point court le 26 juillet 2021. Assistant spécial pour chef officier élection à cette commande Saint Helen déclare que session étonnement ça c'était deuxième à cette initiative qui a organisé en préparation pour l'élection. Saint Helen dit qu'il a un lot de monde qui a employé devant jouer l'élection tout au long de cette année et en considération maladie corona qui est encore plus important pour ça trouver bon entraînement pour prévoir ces diverses responsabilités. Saint Helen a remarqué aussi qu'il a organisé ces entraînements ça fait assurer que cette ici tienne une élection qui s'en est sauve et dit aussi ces officiers ça qui est capable à présent pour ça entraîner l'autre officier à ces diverses paroisses côté yo kay travail pour l'élection. M. Saint Helen déclaré que arrangement j'ai aussi fait pour les gens qui à l'hôpital qui pas capable pour aller voter pour ça trouver l'occasion un jour avant même pour police et officier qui travaille pour l'élection. En parlant de ça, il y a trois commissionnaires qui sont responsables pour que toute affaire élection passe bien. Là c'est Madame Zita George Leslie qui est très satisfait pour manière programme là marcher.
So nous là pour nous voir tout bagaille qu'a fait bon.
Est-ce que vous êtes satisfait de ce qui fait aujourd'hui à workshop là? Est-ce que vous marché assez bien?
Oui, workshop là moi quoi c'était bien bon. Nous tenons toutes ces returning officers là, tout election clerks là t'es là et tout assistant election clerks là. So ça c'est monde là qui intéressé en élection et ça c'est monde là yo ni responsabilité pour toutes 17 constituencies nous ni.
Division qui est responsable pour adresser la situation vol en pays qui a fait bon succès en degré qui a réduit à la quantité de vol qui fait a souffert pour l'habitation agricole et les animaux. Coordinateur pour division ça Chris Albert déclaré que depuis après il fait ce changement pour employer plus d'officiers et établir un groupe sorti en micro pour établir un choisi. C'est des gros vols là en séparant ça là te prend en descendant. Malgré il était vivre pour un mouton devant situation maladie corona.
Mais l'année passée l'année passée là t'es une crise tout partout parce que nous là c'est une crise en vol les animaux à monter durant le Covid là. Oui, mais nous fait bon petit progrès à dingue. Nous n'avons pas problème avec machine. C'est un problème non nous n'avons. C'est machine non nous n'avons, c'est pas machine neuf.
Monsieur Albert qui c'est officier qui en division ça là qui a couvert tout ici en opération pour adresser vol dans oui animaux.
Nous n'avons 7 qui a couvert nord du pays from January à les Canaries, Gozile, Babouno, Villenville, Kasri. Là, il y a un autre set qui a pris forme mon repos, aller OG, vieux fort belle vie, tous ces côtés ça. Et nous y a l'autre set là, qui choisit là, qui a pris forme la bruit, monter sous fouiller.
Ah ben, dans l'autre nouvelle, M. Albert Kay parlé de succès qui a trouvé en opération d'affaires situation ça là, d'affaires vol ça là, l'école secondaire John Odlum, qui est située à Marigot, recevait 3 computers, enfin ordinateurs, de compagnie Axel Finance, pour supporter le département système information. Principal pour l'école secondaire ça là, M. Neil Fontenelle, et coordinateur du département pour service computer à l'école de James, accepté ce cadeau et qui a assisté pour développer les étudiants qui suivent les leçons en direction ça là. Représentatif Axel Finance, Samuel Rosenberg, pour renforcer le commitment compagnie pour assister et supporter particulièrement le développement des jeunesse et l'éducation. Assistance à la qui a augmenté le programme computer à l'école secondaire John Odlum à Marigot, parce qu'il y a un pile étudiants qui ont un service computer pour faciliter l'étude. Il y a l'autre représentatif Axel Finance, c'est General NTN, déclaré qu'il n'y a pas de pièce raison pour pièces étudiants perdre l'occasion pour trouver une bonne éducation est nécessaire pour tuer les étudiants et puis outils pour préparer pour le temps à venir. L'école secondaire John Odlum à Marigot ni en population de 270 étudiants et 60% qui vivent en paroisse Marigot même et commune qui prie. C'est comme ça que nous avons votre nouvelle là. Je remercie autant pour regarder, je vais avoir une invitation. Je ne peux pas considérer conserver la vie et après c'est toute l'autre nouvelle. Et à présent, la vie est présente.
Messi Appeal Primus. That brings us to the end of NTN Nightly. Join us next time at 7 p.m. with a repeat at 7 a.m. You can also catch up with us anytime on the Saint Lucia Government Facebook page or YouTube channel. I am Janelle Norville.